Hello, I am Faye Orlove. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the founder and director of Junior High Los Angeles. Junior High is a nonprofit space located in Los Angeles, California. We serve artists that are made marginalized by a cis hetero patriarchy, by capitalism, by white supremacy. So our space and our publication and our podcast, we function on principles of artistic expression and mutual aid and anti-oppression, ultimately hoping to make Los Angeles a warmer and more equitable place. Prior to COVID, we had opened our doors in 2016 in the summer 2016. We've been open for about 4 years, and we curated events by and for our community of artists. So every night was a different event. We had art shows, workshops, comedy nights, film screenings, seminars, panels, you name it. I'm sure we've done at least 100 of them. The idea was to center narratives that are often silenced from the art world, and that took many, many forms. When COVID hit, I can't think of a single thing. If I were to create something in my brain that would devastate me more, that like it would be COVID, shot for shot. Like every single thing about the pandemic, the health concerns, the inability to see my family, the having to be inside, like all of it was the exact antithesis of how I operated. So it was a very radical shift that I don't think I dealt with super well. Everyone was like, "Ooh, we can bake more." But I was like, this isn't me. This isn't how I operate. I'm very like fast and productive, and I'm a very self-motivated person. And being told like, no, stay in your house. You have one person you can speak to. It was really hard. It was like mentally, I can't think of a single thing that could have been like thrown on top to make it worse. The plan to move the business or close was sort of exponential. It was initially close the doors for a few weeks. We don't know where this virus is going. It's not safe. Then it became, okay, you can pay half the rent. I understand, half the rent for 2 months because you're not open. And the landlords were, being sort of sweet. So I was like, okay, we're good. I can sort of afford that. And then it became, okay, we're 3 months later, you have to pay full rent. At this point, our landlord just shifted completely. It was like, don't care that you're not open, you owe us money. So I had to make this like really hard decision about whether to try and terminate our lease agreement, which is obviously like had its own struggles with legality, and we had to get a lawyer. That versus just accrue all of this debt and hope that there would be an eviction moratorium and hope that the state would fund whatever back rent we owed. It was really, really difficult. Ultimately, I did decide to move into storage, terminate the lease, deal with whatever legal situations or ramifications there would be for that decision, and just hope that we could reopen at some point in the not too distant future. Generally speaking, I prefer to be behind the scenes. Even right now, being on camera is like the absolute scariest thing I can think of. I'm just not like an in front of the camera person. I'm not someone, even in my closest relationships, who's very vocal about emotions or how they're feeling. I've been called robotic far more times than I care to admit. It just is not in my MO to be like, today was hard. And for a multitude of reasons, that's not a super healthy way to live. It was just like a tumultuous time where, as much as I wished I could continue my whole robotic Faye thing where I'm not talking about feelings ever, I just couldn't. And that kind of leaked into Instagram, and it leaked into junior high. And I was much more vulnerable on that platform than I ever had been before. And it was terrifying, but people seemed to care. For 5 years, junior high had functioned entirely as a physical space. The purpose of junior high was always to be an intentional physical space where you know you'd run into someone you know or someone you were about to know and then would be best friends with within a week. That happened to me multiple times. It always was supposed to be a physical space, and the shifting into like this digital realm where events were online and we were hanging out on Zoom, and we didn't have our in-person staff meetings. All of these things just sucked. They weren't it. So instead of just like pushing all those events, I was more of like a wait and see sort of mentality, whereas I didn't push the digital stuff. I didn't like it personally. And I don't usually take into account my personal sort of affect when making junior high decisions. I try to think about the community and mutually what is the best for Los Angeles and the artists who live here. But in this instance, I just, for probably the first time, besides something as little as like picking a paint color, I was like, how do I feel? And that wasn't it for me. It was digital stuff. So I kind of just backed away from pushing all that, and focused more on reopening. When I had initially gotten this prompt, I was like, wrong email. We haven't scaled up. A lot of people would ask me like if junior high was going to open in other cities or in other locations in LA. My answer is always no, no, no. That was never like, I'm one human. No, I think a lot of people interpret the idea of scaling up a business in terms of like numbers and profit and locations or franchises or whatever else it may be. But to me, junior high scaling up has always been much more about our little team and our family and being able to not only include more people in the ethos of this space and the actual production of it, but pay people for the first 5 years. Actually, it wasn't until January of this year. I never paid myself, and we had a space manager, Eden, who's incredible. They've never been paid. We worked for 5 years, completely volunteer driven, as did every single other person who helped with our magazine, podcast, photography, whatever else it was. We just did not have the funds. So in my head, scaling up was like being able to make this a livelihood for the people that I love and the people who have given so much of themselves to make this tiny little experiment of a place work. And I can like very gratefully now say that I'm like a paid person for doing this, as is Eden. And when we have artists come paint a mural on the side of the building or whatever else it is, they are paid. So for me, scaling up was less about multiple locations and just about being able to honor all of the labor that goes into this project. And yeah, so we were able to raise enough money through pandemic times to make that a reality. And in that sense, we definitely did scale up. So I like to think of it more as that. I think being very vocal about the issues we were facing as a small business and as a nonprofit that was mainly an event space during a pandemic that kept everyone inside. It was being very vocal about those challenges and how little support there was and how difficult I was finding it just like mentally on me as a person and mentally on me as a business owner. And the more I was honest about the troubles we were facing and literally like cent for cent how much money we needed to break our lease, to give up the security deposit, these very real large sums, the more the community came together to help see the longevity of the space. So I was really finding that this like weird, rare vulnerability for me was in this instance really helping us to scale up. I mean, I keep like reiterating that the growth was like I don't interpret it as financial, but really in order to exist and to pay people, we need money. Our very first GoFundMe raised $15,000. That was in 2015. The one after that raised 12,000. Excuse me. We did one every year. Then we had a gala, which raised about $9,000. And then here we are in October 2020, the absolute like peak of the surge of awful. LA was just like a hub of COVID. And we raised $85,000. So when I look back and think, what do I attribute that to? I mean, obviously there's a lot of things. Everyone's at home on their computers. People got that stimulus check. People are getting unemployment, which myself and my partner, we've made more on unemployment than we did as artists. And there are a million factors, but I really do believe that it was the authenticity that I brought into the space, that previously I'd sort of been this like blank figure, that let people in. And when people feel like they're contributing to something that's larger than them, I know I'm more apt to give money, and to donate and to sign up for our newsletter, whatever it may be. These tiny little things all help our growth and survival and longevity as a space. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind. So today I am back on my Prozac. Love to see it. Really helping with my personal anxiety surrounding what the hell is happening in the universe. And then with junior high, we signed a lease on a new space that's 3 times as big as the old space. We signed on March 2nd, 2020, literally moved in that day. I was so anxious. And we have for the last, what is it now? May, almost 2 months been refurbishing the space, painting, so much painting, sanding, spackling, basically getting rid of any sort of remnants of the fact that the space used to be a nail salon. It looks so junior high now, like it's us to a T. It feels like the old space, but newer and bigger. I can't even truly wrap my head around it. We had staff training 2 days ago, and I just got home and was just in a daze. I didn't even know how to explain it to my partner. I was just like, this doesn't feel real. I felt like I was underwater in some sort of surreal daze. I don't even know. I feel like there will be studies for years to come about the trauma that was 2020. And I just can't even believe we are where we are now, which is in this space where we get to reopen and have all of our friends combine, have old volunteers come and play music and do a flower pop-up. And we're gonna have junior high cookies, and I keep stressing the cookies. I'm just very excited about the cookies. It's really gonna be so spectacular. And the very first taste I had of real intimacy and community in so long. And man, I can't believe it. And I truly can't wait. And going forward with the junior high, I think what my takeaway with my whole like experiment and vulnerability is, was that sort of transparency is wonderful for a brand. I know I want to see that from other brands. I just feel like there's this dawning of a new age of like millennial consumption and Gen Z consumption, which is all about small and sustainable and ethical. So I definitely, while I feel like we've always adhered to those ethos, the vulnerability aspect and this like authenticity and the strife of starting a business with absolutely no experience or education, I've always tried to be like fairly transparent about that, but I think more so than me continuing to share like my day-to-day, I definitely want to pass the microphone more to shift to other narratives. I have made the decision to be a little bit more like, I'm Faye and I'm behind junior high. I was so like against doing that for years, just scared of criticism, scared of, I don't even know. I didn't want it to be about me. We have like a new radio show launching where I'm going to host it. I've never done something like that. Like I very much am trying to step more into this like world of understanding that junior high wouldn't exist without me, and I am part of what makes it successful and special, and me trying to just like hide myself in the back wasn't doing us any favors. I think that the one thing I really hope someone could take away is if they're starting a brand, or if they are already developing one, or a director of a brand, whatever it may be, is that you and your instincts are what make the brand special, and not some like faceless entity that just wants money. If you are a person who's doing it for money, I don't really have a ton of advice. But if you have a passion and a pursuit that is bigger than yourself to make the world a better place, value how you feel and what you think and what you are enjoying. You are your brand, whether you want to be or not, I'm realizing. And I think that's my main takeaway, is just trust yourself.